You could say whatever you want about me. You could say what you think. Many people told me what a man is and what's a man. Women have told me, men have told me. They've told me what a man is supposed to do and what he's supposed to do. And I'll tell you this, that is their biggest prison. The way they think that the world is supposed to be based on their experience and everybody should follow it. That's what keeps them, upset. And I'm not going to subscribe to it. But if you want to, then you can. But just know, last thought is that you're free to do what you want. It's your life, your situation. Why don't you own it? Own it, embrace it.
You're listening to Journey to Fatherhood, a podcast that inspires and equips men to becoming more intentional and feeling more supported on the journey to fatherhood. Why wait to become a father before learning how to be a good one? My name is Journey To Fatherhood, a young man also on his journey with a desire to help men become great fathers despite their past personal experiences. I'll be sitting with different guests to bring you great value, sharing their knowledge and their experiences as we all embark on this amazing journey. This podcast, though targeted towards men, ladies, you will also gain great value from the conversations. Now, without further ado, let the journey begin. Hello and welcome to Journey to Fatherhood podcast, guys. Again, we have an amazing guest all the way from across the shores, even further than the shores, all the way from America. We have Glen Graham today. And before I even go into who he is and what he does, I just want you to understand that these conversations that we have on the podcast every week, they are conversations of things that are already going on that people are genuinely interested in talking about. These are not issues that are just put on people. It's because there's a common interest and people generally want to come on the show. And I appreciate all the speakers. So with every speaker you're listening to, if you have the chance, get a pen, get a paper, make notes. If you also want to go back to the episodes. Don't just listen to it in the background, because people have taken out time to come here and share. And trust me, it takes a lot for people to even come on a platform to talk about what they really are passionate about. So without further ado, we have Glen Graham all the way from the United States. Excellent. Hi, guys. Like I said, all the way from the United States. Glen Graham, we actually met on Clubhouse. We didn't know each other personally, but I was listening to a lot of his Clubhouse rooms. And for those of you that are on Clubhouse, check him out. Is Glen Graham 4.0. So make sure you check him out, Glen Graham 4.0. I'll also put those details in the descriptions. So when I was on Clubhouse, he has a room called Small Room, Great Value. And what was amazing about that was everyone was given an opportunity to come on the platform or to say something, to contribute or ask questions. What I found interesting is the way he welcomed people. And we were catching up a few days ago and you talked about over time you've learned that it's important to manage how much you talk, because so many people have so much to say. And this time it's your time to talk. And because I know you have so much value to bring. And so to give you a bit more insight of Glen Graham, he's a podcaster, 95 Killers. Check that out. He's wearing the hat. If you can't see the hat, that means you're not watching from our YouTube channel and you need to go to our YouTube channel, subscribe and watch. And he's got, like I said, podcast 95 Killers he's representing. And it's a business podcast that also talks about entrepreneurial lifestyle. And they're currently on season 3. Now, most podcasts don't make it past a few episodes. He's on season 3. So you could tell that there's so much value that's come on the podcast, people from all walks of life. He's a social media strategist. He's an entrepreneur. And in general, he's a consultant as well in different areas of life and entrepreneurship. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Glen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to be here, my brother. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here and talk with you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for coming here. Guys, just to let you know, Glen is so cooperative. We actually just hashed this out a few days ago. So for him to come here, I really appreciate the time. And that's why I said get your pens and your notepads out, because we're going to talk with great value, irrespective of how long we're talking for. It's going to be great. So straight from the get-go, I've always been interested in understanding what's the drive behind why people do what they do. And we had a chance to catch up 2 days ago on a phone call. And you talked about various areas of life that's kind of molded you and helped you become the man that you are right now. everyone listening here, we have a higher ratio of women, actually female listeners, despite the concept of Journey to Fatherhood. We have a lot of female listeners. So for me, I wanted us to address something, a question I ask every man that comes here. What does being a man, what is a man to you? I know it's a very vague question, but I'm interested to see how people interpret that question.
Man, it's very difficult to define, like, right,
Yeah.
what being a man is, because I'm skeptical to do it because it's ever changing, right? And I don't represent every man. So what happens is, like, when we get in certain spaces, like, I typically don't do for example, conversations about it, because sometimes when I've heard men speak on it, what it means to be a man, whatever they put out there, it starts becoming a collective, almost like, depending on who they are, people start to form the conversation. So what I would like to pose to the stage would just be, or to the conversation would just be, what we are is a sum of of what we go through in life, our experiences, what we've been taught, and a culmination of all that together, what you believe also, like, so you have all the things that you've been taught, then you've gotten to a point where you realize that there's things that you were taught that don't necessarily add up to what you were taught, like what being a man is. And so for me, it's always changing. So I don't want to define it. I think a man is, a woman is. That's my,
Okay, I see the
you are.
subtle. That's a nice one. A man is. Listen, that's a first. I'll be honest, that's the first, and I like that because it's also one of those things that we talk with so many speakers that come on, and you're right. It's easy to have your own definition of what a man is being influenced by someone else without you even realizing it's been. So a man is, and you gotta fill that dot for yourself, what you believe it is and how it crafts you and what you think is best suited for that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's I think that's a great way to start. So let's talk about that mindset. A man is, because a lot of people, their identity is not even really their identity. It's been formulated by someone else. So who is Glen Graham when it comes to aside from the accolades, aside from the roles and things like that? Who is the man that is Glen Graham?
Who Glen Graham is change, evolution, always evolving, questioning, admitting, admitting failure, admitting ignorance. Ignorance is just lack of understanding, right? So people think of ignorance and like, oh, well, you're ignorant. You can learn, right? You could try to understand. And I think the more I understand, the more, like, I don't know. I can't tell you per se. Like, I think that a work in progress forever. A student and a teacher. I'm a student and a teacher. I teach people. I learn a lot. And I'm a master of nothing, because the moment you say that you mastered something, to me, you start to, people would say you stop growing, because being called the master doesn't allow you the grace to say I don't know something. So there's things that I don't know, and I love the power of I don't know, because people would get on this platform and probably they told you all that they think what a man is, because it's very funny to say I really don't know. I'm learning what it means to be a person, a human being, because a man is just like a sum. If you think about what they classify a man to be, these are all things that people have come up with their own interpretations, and sometimes we're carrying those things, which they can be liberating, but they could also be a jail to you, because you think you have to behave a certain way, even if you don't think that's what you want to do. You're running the program that someone else has set for you. So I'm always challenging that. So hopefully that makes sense.
You made a great point right there, and in the last sentence you mentioned people trying to be what they think or do what they think they should do, or what a man is. So let us start by now addressing what a man shouldn't be, in the sense of, we talked about this 2 days ago when we were having a phone conversation, the phrase toxic masculinity. And we talked about that. You asked me what I think it means, and I shared that with you. And I wanted to know with you in terms of, despite a lot of awareness of how we should be all expressive of what we're going through and things like that, where there's more awareness for men to be, I guess, again, this is not trying to put men in a box, but the issue of toxic masculinity comes up quite a lot. And it's an area where some people are misunderstood in terms of how to tackle it or how to talk about it. My thing has always been, when I have guests come on a podcast, the aim is to dispel a lot of myths about men as much as possible that aren't true. For example, the idea that men don't cry. That's a very common one that a lot of young boys grow up to think that that's true, or men have to assert their power through aggression, and those things, dispelling that. Whilst we start on that, I want us to talk about what are your thoughts on how people could tackle toxic masculinity if they've been surrounded by it, or if they're currently an example of toxic masculinity?
Man, it's a lot, because you said a lot in that. And so the thing is, you talked about little boys, and for the first starter, little boys are taught different than little. Let's start there. I love that you start with little boys. Let's start with little boys. Little boys are taught different set of rules and values than little girls are taught. That's the first problem right there. So here's the problem, and I give you an example. I was at a birthday party for one of my cousins, my little cousins, and he was going around and he was grabbing the butts and the breasts of the women in the party, right? And he's only about, like, I think he might be 4. I forget how old. He's about 4, something like that. But kids at some point. And so the women was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna be like a ladies' man. He's gonna be a ladies' man. If he continues that until he's our age, he's gonna be in jail if that's the case, right?" So the first problem right there is that they attributed that he's gonna be a ladies' man because he was grabbing women's butts, and they were laughing and moving his hand, and they didn't take it so seriously. I saw something completely different. I saw that if that was a young girl and she was sitting on the laps of every guy in the party, and one of the guys goes to the father and says, "Hey, your daughter's gonna be some lady, man. The way she moves around," that it would be taken totally different. So why is it that little boys are encouraged to do those kind of things and little girls are not? Isn't that two different messages? It starts there. How you teach children.
Yeah, I hear that. So that's a good example, a real life example, because that's something even right now. Sometimes I find myself joking about it, but I have to remind myself, okay, so what does this look like 10 years from now? Because it's all about those foundations. And it's good that you also took us back to young boys. We're gonna do something very interesting here. So I want to find out if you're okay with this. I want you to take us on a journey about, take us on a journey as Glen, as a young boy, and how that experience with, of course, Journey to Fatherhood is about identifying areas where men can be better or can learn better. How was Glen Graham growing up as a young boy in terms of how he started molding as a man? So at the age of, let's start with an example of the boy, at the age of 4 and to teenagehood, adulthood, was there a present male role model there all through that time?
Yeah, so there's several. My father is one. I have an older brother. Believe it or not, I mean, some guys don't mention this, but my sisters have been role models of what a man is for me, because right? Because people think, oh, you got to look at the father, and no, women, they play a very big role. I got a sister, Sandra, for example. I'll give you this example. She taught me how to stick up for myself, but not even directly. She did it for herself. There was a woman in I grew up in the South Bronx in the housing projects, and I remember there was this girl. I'll leave her name out of it, but she was a bit of a bully, and my sister was a certain size, and this girl was smaller than my sister, not by much, but smaller, and she traumatized the neighborhood, all the girls. Like she would put this Vaseline on her face, and I seen her beat up many women in my area. Young girl. She was probably like around, they probably was around maybe 12. My sister might have been like 12. This girl might have been like 13, maybe a little older than my sister, right? So she would hang around a group of girls in my housing projects, and she would go beating up girls. And I remember I was walking with my sister, and the girls were walking behind us, and my sister was like scared, and the girl was like saying stuff to her and threw stuff at her. And I said, "Well, you scared of this girl?" And she was like, "Oh, because you know she can fight." And I'm like, "You fight me, you fight me and my brother, and we're men, like we're little boys, and you fight us like." I mean, I'm sure on one occasion she probably whipped my butt a few times, probably if I could remember clearly. And so I was surprised at her response, and I said, "You don't got to be afraid of that girl." I said, "You could totally do it." So anyway, the girl threw something at her one day. My sister decided to stick up for her. I made sure none of the girls jumped in. I said, "Listen, you know, they're gonna fight. They're gonna do one-on-one." And so the girl, you know, she put the grease on her face. She got ready, and she threw like probably 2 hits. She got 2 hits off my sister, right? And that was the end of the fight. My sister.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, my sister, she beat that girl so badly. I mean, under the bench. This girl was under the bench in a fetal position when my sister was done. She didn't even know where she was, this girl, right? And I was excited. I was like, "Oh my God, that's what it looks like to defend yourself," right? And then, you know, because she wasn't a troublemaker, and then she started crying. And I'm like, "Why are you crying?" She felt bad. Yeah, she felt bad for the girl. I was like, wow. So she taught me to defend myself, but she's also showing me respect for the other person, you know, to still care about their feelings. Even though this girl was a bully, I was like, she should be celebrating. She was crying. And I'm like, what the hell are you crying about? But it made me realize that just because you know, it was so deep. You know what I mean? I thought it was so deep because I was like, I didn't understand it at the time. It took me like a couple years later to get to grasp it. But it also taught me that when I beat somebody or I lost, that I could shake their hand and move on. That one little act showed me all of that. Now maybe there was something different there, but that's what I took from it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting one, and it's good that you actually mentioned that, because, for example, like, this is a transparent conversation. It's good that you mentioned the role females can play in the life of a man. So growing up, my mother's had to play the mother and the father role for quite a while. And sometimes I ask myself, my eldest brother is not that much older than me. It's only 2 years gap. And I actually have to realize how to treat a lady. And of course, people tend to associate just that, but just how to be strong and responsible. Because having to take up such a role, the role that my mother's been taking on for a while now, it just goes to show that you can learn from anything and apply it. There's no such thing as a man's character. This is where I guess humility is both genders, respect is both genders. All of these things are things that you can pick up. So I'm happy that you pointed that out. This is really strong content. And guys, I hope you're still writing those notes, because this is great stuff right here. And so let's go on that then. So you said that I'm taking it, you had a present father. Your father was present in your life as a young man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how was that relationship like, and what was the dynamics like with you and your father growing up?
My father was he worked a lot, and you know, there was a lot of us, you know, it was like 7 of us, you know, so it's a lot of it's a lot to manage, you know what I mean, like to give each person the individual time. Most times that I saw my father was, you know, he helped me with my homework and make sure that I got my education and that I stayed out of trouble. But that's in terms of a relationship conversation, I don't think that I had a lot of conversations with him like that. My mother and I had more conversation. So even though he was in the home, like I said, it has to do a lot with had to go and you know, provide for the family. My mother also did hair, so I got to see her work at one. My father owned and my mother owned a store when I was little, so I got to see them both work, entrepreneurs. Then my father became a teacher down the road, but when it came down to interacting, he was more of a disciplinarian. And that's the thing that I try to let people know in these roles. Sometimes as a man, you stuck in this role of being the one, the enforcer, and other people get to keep their hands clean, and it's good to have both. My mother rarely, if ever, hit me. I could count on my hand maybe once that she hit me, or twice that I could think of, or maybe ring my ears, but my father, he was the disciplinarian. So when I saw him, I thought executioner. I didn't think, oh wow, this is my dad. Let me. I thought, oh, what did I do now? I was only happy if nothing was happening where I had to see him. So it kind of put it. The problem with that, with being a disciplinarian, is that you hold a lot of resentment. I know that a lot of stuff that he did was to make sure it was my benefit, but to a young person, it just seems like, I can see it now. I tell him that now because I don't want him to ever feel, that I don't understand. We lived in a very rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
He was doing the best that he could with what he knew. So I respect that about him. You know what I mean? And a lot that he did, it did teach me principles, to be a man of my word, to not be a follower, to be a leader, and also to learn. Like, you don't, the biggest problem that I find is that people think that they need to have an answer for everything. You don't need to have an answer or know the answer. Sometimes, like I said, the power is I don't know. The power not knowing is amazing, because you can say I don't know, and you can go learn. So learning, because like when I didn't know something with him, sometimes I would try to bull it my way out, but he knew that I didn't know it, and he'd go, well, go look it up, or go look in the encyclopedia. And at first I'm like, why don't you just tell me the answer? I didn't understand that part of the journey was doing the research yourself, finding out what you need to know. And depending on how your interest is in finding the answer to whatever is your problem or your issue, it says a lot about what type of person you're going to become as an adult, as a man, as a woman. So I owe him that he didn't just give you answers. You had to go get the answers.
I love that. I really like that, especially the area of disciplinarian, how people take up roles. Sometimes it's even the reverse. I know some people that they say that their mother was the disciplinarian, and if they ever got in trouble, they went to their fathers because their fathers will talk them out. And it's important that you talked about having a balance of everyone being able to love and also caution, being able to have both in a mix. And this is an area I really want to talk about, because a lot of the men that we've had come on the podcast, majority of them didn't really associate their fathers with someone that they could be transparent with, because for them it was more so a very almost formal relationship. Of course, some people coming from very cultural families where it's very traditional in the way your dad, if you want to talk about anything about your feelings and emotions, go to your mother. If it's about school, business, work, come to your father. And it's good that you brought that up, because I believe that this is something that needs to start changing, because we will only do what we feel is the correct thing to do.
Right.
And we need to start changing it. And this is why from the conversations you've been having on the Clubhouse, again, guys, check out his Clubhouse. Make sure you connect. Small room, great value. The reason I keep repeating that Clubhouse, yes, I don't mind shouting it out, because some of the conversations you have there, people are free to talk about what they've been going through. And this is why this week's episode is about, last week's episode was about community. And it then comes down to the fact, okay, so who do you have around your community? Now, you talked about the fact that you were able to have a very great relationship with your mother, as well as learn from your sister. Now, my thing then, all these wonderful influences, let's take me to the journey of teenagehood. So as a teenager and then to adulthood, how did that shape, and what were you like in that transition?
As a teenager, like what was I like as a teenager?
Yes. Smiled already.
Oh man. As a teenager, I want to say that I was a good person, but what is good? What is a good person, right?
Stop it.
what does that mean?
Stop it.
I was a fair person. I was a fair person. I wouldn't say I was a good person. I was a fair person, meaning that, I tried to I had a certain level of integrity and honor about myself, but good is a stretch. Bad is a stretch, because I also wouldn't say I was a bad person, but I did things that were both good and bad. And so I think as an adult, or as a kid, I learned from there not to associate. I learned that a little going into adulthood, not to beat myself too much about the bad things I've done, and or the good things I've done. You have people saying, "Oh, but I did a lot of good deeds." Doesn't make you a good person. There's a lot of people that do great things but are terrible people, and a lot of people who do some bad things, but are actually great people. So I realized that every day I wake up, I have the choice to change that. So I was getting in a lot of trouble. I mentioned that, and when I did a podcast interview, and I don't have children, but the closest I have to a child is like when my little brother Brandon was born, and I was like, I got to change my life around. I can't expect him to be a member of society, a productive member, if I'm, I was doing a lot of nonsense. You know what I'm saying? And the only thing that ever kept me from going, to me, way off was my family. I was worried about, I didn't want to shame them or whatever. So I started to, like I said, when he was born, I was like, I gotta get my life in order. And then I started to just get my life in order a little bit more and more. And part of getting my life in order meant becoming a different person. So I was pretending in the beginning, I was pretending to be a person who was on time and who was doing the right things, and because it wasn't a natural thing. I was very mischievous, and I was I'm still a bit of a rule breaker. I like to break rules. I still that hasn't changed. Like people call it disruptor now. That's a nice way to say it. I'm a disruptor. Yeah, I'm a disruptor. I was a mischief maker. A good guy, decent guy, but mischief maker means like I'm gonna push the management, whoever's in charge. I was gonna make it your life difficult, because I'm gonna question you and your authority, and I didn't know where that energy comes from. They say it's disruption, so I'll say that I'm a disruptor, right? That's the new phrase. So I was a disruptor, and what I learned from finally figuring out that that role gets you but so far. That constant pushing the system for the simple fact of pushing the system wasn't doing me any good. So I had to figure out a way in which to get my life together. And that started by, like I said, it started by becoming somebody else. So at first, it's not really, it's an act. It's a charade. It's a charade, they say, right? And as you start to, you start to feel, oh, yo, people actually respect me. People actually, want my opinion. Then, you're encouraged to keep going. And before you know, you become that person. So I am still that person from before, but I am different because this is part of me. If you've done anything for years or more than 10 years, it becomes part of you. So you ever watch those movies where the person pretends to be a cop or they pretend to be something else and then they end up being the real thing? I thought I was pretending so that my little brothers would never see me do anything crazy, but I actually became that person for real because something more powerful happened. My niece said this to me. She said, you have a lot of children. She told me I have a lot of children, being that there are people in the world that see me and they're my children. So I have a lot of children in terms of, and I was like, wow, because I was thinking at the time, as long I'll behave this way until they're old enough to be good guys, and then I could go back to the way I used to be. Not thinking that I was going to change for real. Like I said, I'm thankful for that because, if not for that, who knows what I would have, become. So I'm thankful. So that's an example. I could give my brother the credit. He changed me because I saw that I wouldn't want him to be the guy that I was. So
I love what your niece said. You have a lot of children.
Yeah, and my niece Kemi.
Oh, she's smart. That's a wise young lady.
She's very wise. She's a fashion designer. Very wise young lady indeed. Yes.
And the power in that is beyond just the statement. It just goes to show that it's a reminder that people look up to you irrespective of what you're doing, that there are people there that you're influencing directly. And sometimes it could become a burden where people are like, well, I'm not living for anyone else. I'm just doing me. But at the same time, there's also a sense of honor in that, knowing that you can genuinely positively impact and influence someone's life. And it takes me on to this question now. How has it been looking back over the years? The areas you said that, I know that we talked about it briefly. You mentioned how for your niece, you were looking for your younger brother, you had to kind of start changing yourself because you wanted to be a better example to him. How has that now panned out in terms of how you then work with young people? Do you still work, for example, your younger brother? What are you giving back in terms of helping them along the journey through manhood, or how does that look like, or what would you encourage people to do?
Well, you have little brothers?
Yes, I've got a younger brother.
How old is
10
he?
years gap.
10 years gap? He's 10 years younger than you?
10 years younger than me.
So I'll put it this way. So my mission in life, my journey.
8 years, sorry.
8 years.
8 years younger than me.
So my journey in life has taken me to the point where the best advice, or I did a room about this the other day in Clubhouse, and it was like, are you, you could either be an example for them to follow or the lesson to avoid. So I give them the example to follow. What they follow is totally up to them. I put it out, like, even when some people, there was a friend that said to me, associate, I'll say, he said, you know, you're always bragging about what you do and putting this online. And I thought it was so funny because I'm talking about my business. I'm not putting up sneakers. And I thought about what he said, and I said, it's not bragging. I'm influencing. I'm trying to, motivate. Like, there's people, if you have a younger brother, motivation doesn't look like, hey brother, let me talk to you about how you could change your life. All they hear is wah, 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 wah. So the only way that I can really, like, get to them is show them that they can have whatever they want if they apply themselves. And how do I do that? By living it. I have this quote that I don't know where I got it from, but who said it? But somebody had a quote. It said, "Practice what you post." So whatever you posting on social media, practice it. There's plenty of people on social media talking this one way, and they're not doing anything. And I'm not talking about anything business-wise. I'm talking about who you are, how you live in the real world. How do you move? And so the only way I can show my little brothers, who sometimes we don't talk on the phone as much, none of them, we don't really talk that much. And so I use the platforms that I'm on, like this conversation. They might listen to it, and I'm talking to them indirectly. Everything that I do is for them, and if not for them, for somebody else's child or someone else's daughter, or even sometimes for myself. Maybe I'll go back and listen to this, and I'll be like, yeah, you know what? That makes sense for me. Sometimes the advice is for me or for you. You know what I'm saying? It's not always for who we intend it to be for, but it's gonna, the reflection of it, right? And when I think of your question, it is, what are we gonna do to motivate ourselves, right? But what does that look like to somebody else, right? And the only control we have over is how we move ourselves. Once you forget about how somebody's going to interpret it, do I think my little brother's going to watch this and the clouds are going to open up? I do not. I do this because it is a way in which it encourages me to get out of bed every day, that I can do things like this, talk to people like you from around the world, and we have some similarities in terms of how we view things. We might have some differences, but these conversations are important, and we can't leave it up to the person who we think should do it. Someone says, well, what do you think about this person? And I don't like to think about this person who I'm never going to have a conversation with. You can call me, I can call you, we can have conversations. Why do I care about what this one or that one thinks, or what this politician or what this celebrity thinks? I don't care what those people think. I'm in the business of, as a pastor would say, saving souls. So I don't worry about what level of souls you have control over or you can save. I know that my voice is powerful, and if I'm intentional with how I understand stuff. So you can't get power behind your voice because you can speak well. You have to do the work on yourself, and you can't do that work if you are trying to be something that you're not. So I don't try to be, I just, like I said in the beginning, I am me. I am as a man. That's just what I'm. You just be it. You don't try to live it. You be it. And when you are something, you never have to say, how strong a man you are, how weak a man you are. Am I an alpha male? Am I a whatever they are, omega male? I am me.
Yeah.
I am me, and I'm ever evolving. I'm ever changing, and I wanna reach people, but I also want to make sure that I'm good too, because I got to make sure that I'm okay. Like, and when you're in the airplane, they tell you, adjust your own oxygen mask before worrying about other people's oxygen masks, because you're out here trying to help everybody else, but you're dying. Your family's dying. Work on your stuff first. So I work on my stuff first. It is both selfish, but it's also very giving, because in my helping and posting my stuff, if that encourages somebody that they can do it, then cool. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
That's brilliant. I'm just here making notes whilst you were speaking, and I was writing down. You said you can either be an example, or I didn't catch the last part of that.
You can be an example to follow or a lesson to avoid.
Do you know what? I could have that on a frame right now, and that would be a great example to remember every single day. That's amazing. You can either be an example to follow or a lesson to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, we avoid a lot of,
So much
we avoid, I gave an example also that I avoid. There's some people in my life that when they say don't ever be like me. They tell you don't ever be like me, Glenn. And I'm like, man, that's powerful. Someone saying don't do this thing that I did. Don't be like me at all. Nothing about me is great. Crazy. So I decided I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that lesson for everybody. But hey, don't be like me. Hey, don't be like me. Why not just be the example of what you want people to be, instead of telling people, because you're setting your bar way low. That's such a powerful thing to tell somebody. But I have people tell me that in my life, don't ever be like me. And I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing? Like, what is it about your life that you're unredeemable, that you can't change something? And it's also, to me, it's also a bit of a cop-out, because you're not dead, right? So why don't you change right now so that you can be something that people can be proud of? If you have children, like I push parents, same thing. You telling you get education. Hey, don't be like me. Don't get your education. Why don't you go back and get your education? Because it's easy to tell somebody else to do it. Oh, you're younger and you have no. You did your life. You had your fun. This is my time. I do what I want with my time. That's my biggest issue, is people telling other people what to do with their time. I don't tell anybody to do with their time. Do whatever you want. But one thing I will say, be accountable for the life that you have, because you did what you wanted. I'm happy with the life that I have, doing the things that I did or didn't do. Like I'm starting to own it now. Like if I have a shitty job, or I don't have any money in my pocket, I start looking at the days. What did I sacrifice to be in a better place? What are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to not get the 11th pair of Jordans and start your company? Or are you going to buy that 11th pair so you can make Michael and Smile and Nike even more rich, and their family? They're whoever's a part of that company owns so much at this point. When are you going to put your hat in the ring? When are you going to start your business? When are you going to start your Nike? You can't start your Nike following that. I guarantee you they're not going to wear your stuff. Are you wearing this stuff? I don't listen. But if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, oh, well, you can't. I never wore logos that much until I started my own business. I never was big on it. I just don't see the point of it. People look like billboards. The designs are getting bigger and bigger, and people are so proud to represent this company. And all those are people's family names that you are building legacies. And then you say, well, why are we in this situation? And when I say we, I'm talking about, we, whoever the we are. So whoever your we are, and that could be anybody who describes yourself as, well, we, right? When you say we, because you won't speak for me, you speak for yourself. When you say you, while you're in a situation, because we, people do that. And, I'll be honest, I'll say black people. When somebody says we as black people, I'm like, no, say you as a black person. You do this. Don't put me in the ring with you, because you don't know me and I don't know you. So that we, people say, well, when I say we, no, don't we me nothing, because you can't speak for me. They can't speak for you. Generalizations is what's killing people.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
generalizations of everything is, well, you know, as a black man, I don't want to know what you think as a black man. I want to know, how do you think? Because you and me are both black, right? Can you tell me what I'm going to say next? Because last I checked, that little umbilical cord behind my brain, we from the mothership is no longer linked. Listen, there's things that you can assume and you can say, and you know what the thing is? Because when I get into a lot of situations, people, when I mention stuff, they tell me they know that I know what they mean. I'm gonna tell you, the only way you're gonna ever get me to not disagree with you, if you just say, in my opinion or in my experience. Can you just put that in front of your thing? In my experience as a black man, this happened. That's his experience. I'll sit there, interesting experience. In my opinion as this, I think women are blank. In my opinion as a woman, I think men are. Once again, it's your opinion. And now you went from turning this thing into a fact. All men are this. All women are this. All black men think this. You figured out a way to put it through your little lens and perspective, because whatever happened to you in your life, whatever you have, I'm not discounting that, but why don't we just keep it on ourselves? Why do we have to bring everybody into it? We need to stop doing this, and we need to get more people in our community, and you need to do that.
Start with you.
What are you gonna, because you can't make we do anything, right? I can't make you decide that this is a priority for you and it's not. I have to focus. If it's a priority for me, Glen's going to work on it, and I'm going to get like-minded individuals together, and we're going to work on it. Not we as a collective, all together in the same thing. Life doesn't work that way.
That's mind-blowing. I know I'm definitely going to be watching this episode back and back. I haven't been able to make all the notes I wanted. I'm just made a page worth of notes, but it's still not enough. One thing I'm really interested in understanding, why I hope everyone's really been taking some time to take this in, because this is why I said it's going to have a lot of great value, because not only are these topics associated to men, it's topics associated to everyone, where everyone can learn. I love what you talk about in terms of being able to practice what you post, the phrase that you said, because I think we're also in a time where a lot of people aren't taking time to just examine themselves. You know, you say love yourself and do all of these things. You see people posting all of these things and they don't practice it enough. So my thing is, in terms of, we've talked about it 2 days ago. You talk about the fact that you love learning things. You're a student and a teacher. That's what you mentioned. So you like to share what you have knowledge of, but you also gain skills. One of the things, if people may not know about you, is the fact that you give yourself a task to learn a certain variety of skill sets, with nunchucks, all sorts of stuff. Listen, I told you I was going to bring it up. I really find it amazing, because this is something that, whilst to many people they may say, well, it's just, he's just learning, someone's just acquiring little skills. It's not little skills. For me, it's the discipline and the diligence behind it. So guys, I know if you're listening now or watching, you may be saying, what's Chinedum talking about? Go to his page, Glenn Graham. Go to his page. I'm going to put in the description. You understand this, and you probably say, what has this got to do with manhood or fatherhood or anything like that? For me, I find it so inspiring when I see people commit to doing things for themselves, not just because, I know you said in the future you want to showcase that, but doing something for yourself. For example, people that take a book to read about relationships, people that take a book or take time to understand their mental health or understand things about themselves, people that take time to learn a skill like you're doing. And for me, I want you to just share with them what brought about the desire to learn a new skill every now and then with weapons and things like that.
Man, that's a long road, but I'll try to make it short as possible. So part of the road, right? Part of the road to learning, acquiring new skills is, you mentioned it, you touched on it, discipline.
Yeah.
I realized how long I wanted to learn how to use nunchucks. I had to be a child. The first time I seen somebody use a pair of nunchucks on somebody else for self-defense.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into details what happened, but just say it was quick and it was fast and it was done, right? And I said, I want to learn how to use that. So I went out and I told my father that I wanted, back in the day, you can buy nunchucks And there was this website that was selling, not a website. It was no website. What am I talking about? It wasn't websites. It was like it was in a magazine, right? Where you can send them the money and they send you. And I don't know if anybody who's watching this remembers the time. How old are you?
I'm 25.
25. So you won't remember this.
That's why I'm just smiling.
This is before the internet. So you could mail away and get a pair of ball bearing metal nunchucks. I mean, that would break bone. My father saw those and he said, absolutely not. You're not ordering those at all.
Okay.
He said, but he told me that I can go to there was an Asian spot in my neighborhood. Okay. We went down there and they happened to have plastic ones, hard plastic. So I didn't want hard plastic, but he was like, that's all you're getting. You're not getting these barbarian ones that are metal. You'll kill yourself. And thankfully that he thankfully to my father, he didn't let me get the metal ones because I was playing around with them. I didn't really learn how to use them. And I smacked myself in the head with these hard plastic nunchucks and I never picked them up again. I've been scared to death of them for years. I never touched them again. Like I just didn't do anything with them, right? So then the pandemic hit. Now, mind you, this was probably, I might have been when last time I picked up a pair of nunchucks, I was probably maybe 10 years old, right? So we're talking about close to 40 years later, right? I pick up these nunchucks. I knew at this point for my first lesson to not buy hard plastic, not wood. I went and bought practice nunchucks, the foam ones. Okay. And I started doing some of the things, the figure eights and some of the stuff that I used to do when I was a kid before I whacked myself in the head with them. And the beautiful thing about now that wasn't happening then is back in the day, you had to go to a school and learn from somebody or learn from some guy in the street how to do nunchucks.
Got the internet.
Advance the YouTube generation. Come on. YouTube has a bunch of videos and I just started watching videos and people started sending me videos because I started posting my progress. And people started sending me, I bet you can't do this. I bet you can't do that. And so everything they posted, I made a list of the things. I just went down the list, started learning how to do them. Then I learned nunchucks. Then I was like, what else can I learn? And then I decided to do like a weapon every few months, different ones I want to learn. So I started making a list. So nunchuck was at my highest. That was my goal. I achieved it. And then I was like, what about if I learned something else? So the idea behind it also, you said what makes me want to do it also is the idea that one, self-defense is something that I don't mention a lot, but I think self-defense for men and women it's very, very important. And some people say, well, what if the person has a gun? Well, if the person has a gun, nothing you can do about that. But what happens is, I know legally in the state, right, there's things that you can carry. When I was growing up, I had everything. I won't get into what I had on me when I was a kid. Or I was a young man. But I will say this, when I decided to change my life around, I still was into weapons, but I started to look at the law and what could I carry. So even when I wanted to buy nunchucks, they were real ones. Unfortunately, they were illegal because the whole Bruce Lee craze, they were illegal in my state, in New York City.
So that was more dangerous than carrying. Oh, okay.
It was illegal. You couldn't carry them. And in 2018, they overturned the ruling was overturned, and I found out that you could. So right before the pandemic, about a year or so before, I saw an article that said it was overturned, that carrying nunchucks was legal and I could carry them. I said, oh, now that was even more reason to learn how to use them, because for me, they're more practical than having a knife. They create a distance between you and an attacker, and also it's a more humane way, I think. If you stab somebody, there's a good chance they might die. Nunchucks, you got a good chance that, you might have a concussion, but at least you'll live, right? So I'm very much, like I tell you, like my sister, learning from my sister about when she cried for that girl. I think about, even though if somebody's attacked me, I'm thinking about my health, but I'm also thinking about them as well. It might have just been a bad decision they made, and I'm not looking to kill somebody. That's just my, people have their own, beliefs. I'm looking to protect myself. So I'll do what I got to do to protect myself, and no more, no less. I'm not going to go over and kill you because you attacked me, but I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to match the ferociousness that you're coming at me with. So if you're at me with deadly intent, I move with deadly intent. If it's not deadly intent, you can't approach everything the same way. So I have different situations require different measures of dealing with things.
Response.
So so that's my thoughts on it.
You said something interesting, and again, I'd love. We talked about it on the phone a few days ago. The area of self-defense, more so specifically how men stand up for themselves. I want us to get into that because we talked about, you brought up the issue how boys and girls are raised growing up, things that are reinforced, behaviors that are reinforced are different from how the things that are taught to girls. For example, even though we didn't mention this example, for example, the idea of, don't cry, you're a man, stand up for yourself. Don't act like a kid. Don't act like unfortunately, I don't mean this, but when people say, don't act like a girl, don't be crying like a girl, things like that really get into some guys. And it really traps them in a place of, I can't express myself. I can't speak up. And it's so important for us to start dismantling a lot of these things that put people down. And if you're okay to share it, we talked about this 2 days ago, how you had a situation at work, your place of work, and how that kind of got you in a place where you had to
no worries.
Resume. So you talked about in your workplace how you had some situation. I would like you to get into it, how you had a situation that happened at work where
I know you're talking about.
I don't really know how to break into that, but I'd love you to talk about it, because I believe this is something where some men still go through it but don't know how to speak up for themselves in situations like that.
Right. So we were talking the other day when you first asked me to do this, and you mentioned the phrase toxic masculinity, and you talked about why some men feel they have to act a certain way and women act a different way. And I think that I mentioned before that I think it's learned behavior, but I gave you an example of how some of the people who say, they want you to speak up as a man, you can cry, you can do this. They don't really mean it. People say it. Like, I've heard women say, if their boyfriend cry, oh, he's acting like a little bee or whatever. And I'm like, oh, but you want people to express themselves, right? But when they do, they're acting like, oh, but he's such a big guy, and like, big men don't have feelings. Like, we don't have like, we can't cry, we can't. So I gave an example that I was thinking of, where I was sexually harassed at a job that I was at by this like really gross lady. Very gross lady. And and what happens is, she came to a counter. I was doing sales. She came to my counter. I helped her a few times, and she thought there was chemistry. There was no chemistry there. She propositioned me. I told her no multiple times. The day before, she came back to my job, only would speak to me, right? And this time she came back and she started to, offer me things. You know what I mean? Like, very. And I was like, you know what? Look, I'm working. No, thank you. I'm not interested. Oh, do you have a girlfriend? Doesn't matter. I'm not interested in you at all. It's like, it's not, has nothing to do with me having a girlfriend or not. I'm not interested in you. Not interested in your proposal. Whatever. She kept going on and on. So I moved away from the counter. She followed me to the other side of the counter. And so at this point, I said, you know what? I logged out of my machine. I went to the back and I told the management, this is protocol, right? They tell you if a customer is being a certain way, you need to tell us about it, so that, I can, we can get it under wraps. And so I went to report this lady, and I'm telling the manager, there was 3 managers in the back. They all bust out laughing. Oh, a big man like you can't handle that woman. Ha 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 ha. You're scared of that. You're scared of that lady, Glenn. Like, joking about it. And I said to them, so if a woman came back here and they reported this, you would be Johnny on the spot. But now, because I'm reporting, I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go into the lunchroom and I'm going to go sit in there, and I'll come out when she's gone. And then when I'm finished eating, I'm going to also take a trip down to HR and see what they think about it. And then everybody got on top of it. They put her with somebody else. And then my manager came to the back. He spoke to me, and he said, hey, sorry about that. Wasn't that, it was just, and I said, she's gone and you could come out when you're ready. I said, yeah, I'll come out when I feel up to it. So I milked it for another,
Yeah.
I milked it for a good 20, 40 minutes back there. And then I came out and, that was it. Now, my issue with this whole situation, right, is if I would have went, if I would have went nuts and been like, listen, and listen, people do that. I know how to talk in the street. I know how to defend myself. My point is that I'm representing a company and I'm thinking, this is my thought. I'm thinking that the company wants me to behave in a professional manner. The people there, the customers, can't always be right. Like that lady should not have been allowed to stay in the store. She was harassing me, right? She should have been given a warning. And if she did it again, she should be put out. Don't you know she did it to somebody else? She did it to two of until they finally banned her. My point is, I've seen it, and I'll give you an example. Something happened similar to one of my friends at the job. This was a young lady, and another customer, this very gross guy, very vile dude. And funny thing, this guy was a reporter. So this is a reporter for for a TV, right? So he was a man, he was a customer, and I remember one day I saw him, following this lady in my job from she from place to place, putting up his hand, putting it up on the, how guys are trying to talk and trying to be smooth. And I went in her area to just make eye contact with her, and she looked nervous, and she said, "Oh, there he is right there," and she pointed at me. And so he came over to me and he said, hey, let me ask you a question. Is that your lady? Is that your woman? Because she said that you're her boyfriend. That's why she won't give me her number. And I said to him, I said, what did she tell you? And he said, she told me that you're her man, but I don't believe her. I think she's making that. Is that your lady? I said, I'm gonna put it this way, bro. I said, the fact that a woman is telling you that I'm her man and you don't believe that is true, which is none of your business, by the way, but that should be a hint to you that she's not interested in you. So I said, I want you to do me a favor, pretend like I'm her boyfriend and stop talking to her. Don't disrespect her again. And he was like, oh no, I just wanted to know. You got your answer. Do you need help with something? And so I helped him with his, order, and he was trying to make small talk with me and all this other nonsense. And I was already done with him. I was literally like, this is the type of person, you know what I mean? The way he was getting close to this lady, like it was cringeworthy. It was very uncomfortable for me to watch. And it was also disrespectful that you won't she's a grown lady. She said, I'm not interested in you. You couldn't take that. She had to lie and say that I'm her boyfriend. And you still coming to the guy who, what kind of person are you? So that's why it's very difficult when we talk about what a man is and what a man isn't. I don't know who this guy gets his lessons from, but he might think that that's manhood, that you take what you want, that that if the lady needs a little bit of encouragement, I don't know what he thinks, but my point is he doesn't represent me, and I think that's why I'm reluctant sometimes to say certain things, because if I wouldn't have seen that, and I know it exists, right, but I never seen that level, like what he was doing with that lady, the way he was on top of her, damn near, was, I remember how the lady made me feel. She wasn't even doing that much. And I felt uncomfortable. You understand what I'm saying? So I can imagine you trying to do your damn job and you got this person. And then, the other thing about her situation is she was new and she wasn't in a union, right? So she's worried about her job. So, imagine how many people are at a job and they don't say something because they're afraid, because they might lose their job. Because like I said, this guy spends money. He's a reporter. He's, you know what I mean? And he's doing this in plain sight of everybody, and nobody's doing anything about it. So that's my issues.
Honestly, after we had that conversation, it got me thinking so much, and just thinking about how many voices haven't been heard, or how many people haven't been supported in expressing their voice. This is why I was even more excited. We spoke about it after our call, that I was looking forward to having you on the podcast, because that story alone, and please, guys, if you're listening and this is you, it's okay to go speak to someone about it, because I believe that there are still some people that are dealing with some childhood traumas, some sort of sexual abuse, harassment, something like that people haven't talked about. it's okay to go deal with it. It's okay to start addressing it now, because sometimes it really directs people's behavior and people's lives. Fortunately for you, you were more mature to the point where you were able to tackle it in the best way possible. And I say this to a lot of young people because I've had the chance to mentor some young boys across the schools I've worked in. Some of their stories are crazy.
Mm.
And you think to yourself, well, this is new, and you find something else that's new. So it really hits home in the sense that I've seen some young men go through things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to encourage you, if I know we have female ladies listening, and guys, please encourage, don't allow guys to act a certain way because it's what men do. Like you said, there's no point in saying asserting your dominance and all of those things whilst making someone else uncomfortable, or the idea that you're a big man, you should handle it. These are things that it gets onto me when people don't wake up to the fact that these things need to change. So I appreciate you sharing.
But you said that it kind of circles back to you started out, we talked about self-defense. So the other piece of it is also, that's why I'm a big proponent of self-defense for women and men, not just men, not just women and men, because part of it is the old society believes that it's a man's job to take care, because I have friends like, I tell them stuff that I buy for my girlfriend, and the self-defense stuff that I teach her. Why does your lady need to know that? You're going to be there. And I was like, no, I won't always be there. How do you know when she's attacked, who will be where? So those are real situations. And I want her to have everything at her disposal, not just her, my other friends as well. I want them to be able to protect themselves. Like, part of self-defense, and this is something I shared with a young man the other day. He told me he was jumped by a bunch of kids in front of his girlfriend. And one of the questions I asked him was, where did it happen? And he told me, oh, it happened in this area. And I was like, what were you doing over there? And he goes, oh, I was visiting a friend. Do you live in that area? No. I was like, I know that area. Don't go in that area. I wish somebody would have told me that. It's so simple. He was like, don't go in that area. And don't go in that area. And if you have friends in that area, why don't you have them meet you somewhere? And then also, he told me he wanted to learn how to fight. And I said, hey, I would love to teach you. And I do plan on teaching him to use some types of, things. But I said, part of learning how to fight is learning how to avoid fights. The people that fight the most cannot fight at all. That's why they always want to fight, because they always want to prove how tough they are. People that can fight don't go looking for fights. Normally, by the way, let me just say normally,
I understand.
The ones who look for fights usually don't have a clue of how to fight at all. And they think that if they get mad enough, if they get angry enough, they're going to get this superhuman strength and everything's going to be okay. Here's what's going to happen. Your vision is clouded. Your mind is clouded because you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand that I could beat the crap out of somebody and my heart rate will not elevate, not the slightest. Maybe an excitement only. You can't say that. Some people can't do that because they can't differ. They can't separate the fact that, somebody, you ever see people get all excited? They have to get all riled up before they can do. I've seen a lot of people do that. And then the other person is already planning the attack. I saw a guy doing that one day, no lie. Guy chopped him right in his throat with his hand. He just chopping his throat because the guy was yelling and screaming and carrying on and looking this way and that way, and he wasn't focused. And he was bigger. He was the bigger guy too. It wasn't like he was a small guy, but the other guy was just watching them, and he attacked first. And that was it. That was the end of it. By the time this guy got his win, the other guy was long gone. And I just think about, when I think of self-defense for men or women, the beautiful thing about teaching a woman and why a woman, I encourage it. If you're listening to this and you want some, I have a couple of items I would suggest to you as a woman or as a man to have. A bunch of things I could tell you. So the first thing would be self-defense is awareness. That's the first thing. People mistaken, they think it's a weapon. Self-defense is awareness. Be aware of your surroundings. That means that when you're out and about, I know we have these fancy little phones. I know that whatever you're doing is important United Nations news that you have to do right in the moment, and no matter where you're at. Newsflash: when you're going home, watch where you're going, man or woman. Know what's on the street. Notice the cars that are there. Notice the people that are in the neighborhood, right? Know who lives on your block. You don't have to talk to them, but know who they are. Some people make the mistake of looking down and not looking people in the face. Make eye contact. Make eye contact. Look at people. Know how long. Like there was a situation where my sister, one of my sisters, told me there was a guy who had followed her multiple times, and then she saw him in 3 different locations, and that's how she was able to figure out this guy was following her, stalking her. So people stalk you. That's the first thing. The other thing is your hands. What do you have in your hands, right? So people always want to have and do multitask. So you have a bag here, you got your phone in this hand. Instantly, you're going home, you got a rifle for your keys. Both your hands are just, they're like, my girlfriend will tell you, one of the arguments me and my girlfriend have, we walking together, is she likes to hold my hand, and I don't like to hold her hand in the street. And she's like, why not? I said, I need one hand free at least.
Oh, wow.
So she always wants to hold the dominant hand. And I'm like, well, if you want to hold my hand, hold this hand. And she's like, why do you do that? Because I got to be able to respond if something happens. So let me have this hand. So now she knows. So now we're working at a certain time of night. She doesn't hold my hand at all. And I'm like, thank you. Because I need to be able to react quickly if I need to. The other thing is avoiding, like looking around is avoiding potential problems. That means if you see something happen, it may have nothing to do with you. Don't keep walking through. I have friends that tell me, well, I don't want to walk around the other way. That's too much. That's their problem. You walk right in the middle of something. So being aware of your surroundings. And then the fourth thing would be also having something to protect yourself, right? That's the other thing. Have something to protect yourself. People say keys. Like there's this great little stun gun that I use that I don't use it, but I have. And because it's legal in my state. So find out if it's legal in your state first before
Definitely
you purchase
not
anything.
in the UK.
It's not legal? Okay.
Not in the
well,
UK.
mine is legal. And so it's very small. It fits in the palm of your hand, lets off a nice charge. Don't use it on someone's neck unless you really want to put them down, because it's very powerful.
Okay.
Be aware, and be aware of something that you can have and use that you can have on you that's legal in your state or in your country. Don't go buying stuff and don't know, because you get in trouble like that. So hopefully I covered that.
Yeah, you definitely played a part of the teacher right there. You call yourself a teacher and a student.
Student and teacher.
Honestly, I've taken notes down. So I've got self-defense as awareness. What do you have in your hands? Make sure your hands are empty. You've got a free hand, being aware of your surroundings, and acquire tools. But this has been a lesson 101 of everything. I've loved every single minute of it. And I really appreciate you just being so raw with everything you're saying, being transparent, because that's what we need more of. And Glenn, I know I've said it before, but thank you so much for coming on. I understand the time difference. It means a lot. It means a lot being here.
No, thank you. And if I could just, like, my parting thoughts on this is, because I know we talked about a few different things, but we started out with, so I'll bring it back full circle. The first thing you were asking me about, like, what a man is, right? And this is for anybody listening. Define it for yourself. Stop letting people define, what it is that you are, man or woman. Like, what a relationship is for you is different. Like, people find themselves inside of things, doing things that other people think they should do, whether your parents told you that, whether you picked it up from somebody else. Start asking questions. Why is that? Ask somebody why do you think that way? And if they can't respond in a well thought out manner, if it's just listen to me because I know better, then you maybe do something different. Because if you start to look at the people that give you all of this advice, right, who've written books, who've done all these amazing works, and then you realize that they're a work in progress, and what they're giving you, imparting on you, is just their opinion. It might be a strong, well out opinion. It might be a strong theory, but at the end of the day, it is just that, an opinion. And so I didn't want to start out the conversation telling you what a man is and enforcing it, and putting another list of rules and parameters of what a man is to somebody who respects and likes me and says, Glenn says that, so it must be true. I'm telling you, find out what a man is for you. Nobody can teach you how to be a man. Nobody can teach you how to be a woman, because it's going to keep changing. And I just want you to be happy with define it how you want to define it. Like, is a man somebody who makes all the money and pays for everything? Is a woman somebody who cooks all of the food and makes sure that she rears the children? Is that what it is to you? Then that's what it is for you. That's not my understanding and definition of it. Is for me. It's changing, and I've seen women do amazing things. I've seen women who want to pursue their business career, and I've seen people say, "Oh my God, it's so sad that somebody said to me, I read this quote, and she said, what is it a woman, what do you call a successful woman who has a business but no husband?"
A successful woman.
A successful woman.
Yeah.
That's it. The same thing what you call a man. Same thing. The fact that people are trying to shame people into what they think they should be that's for them. Like, I don't care. You could say whatever you want about me. You could say what you think. Many people told me what a man is and what's a man. Women have told me, men have told me. They've told me what a man is supposed to do and what he's supposed to do. And I'll tell you this, that is their biggest prison. The way they think that the world is supposed to be based on their experience and everybody should follow it. That's what keeps them, upset. And I'm not going to subscribe to it. But if you want to, then you can. But just know, last thought is that you're free to do what you want. It's your life, your situation. Why don't you own it? Own it, embrace it.
You had to leave with a nice line right there, didn't you? You got to give that to me again. You're free to do what you want. It's your life.
It's your life. I don't know. I think I said own it, embrace it. I don't know. But something like that.
I'm definitely gonna extract that part of it. But thank you so much once again. So to the listeners and the viewers, what's the best way to get in contact with you, and what are the different channels they can get a hold of you on?
The best way to get in contact with me is the best way that you like to communicate. Because I could say find me on Clubhouse. I could say I'm on Instagram. But whatever you see me on, I'm the same person. So it doesn't matter where you contact me. If
right.
You approach me in a respectful manner, I'll respond. If you don't, that's going to be my response. I won't respond. So if you respond to me respectfully, like how you did, I'm going to respond to you, or I'm not going to respond to you. But most of the people that reach out to me, that's not asking me to buy Bitcoin or anything like that, I respond to them.
Okay, guys.
So let me put that out there. So don't call me don't reach out to me about Bitcoin, anything that you have it, that you want me to help me mine it. I don't want to know nothing about it.
That just came from nowhere.
I don't know, but it crazy. People keep like, I don't know what the hell is going on. People keep trying. Two things people do. And the last thing, people either approach me about Bitcoin, or it's either Bitcoin or it's like some kind of rental property. They want me to, or they want me to get followers. That's it. or some hot lady wants to go on a date with me and she's only in town for the night.
I did not expect that at all. Guys, by the way, this is not a promo for Bitcoin at all. Or this promo, if anything.
No disrespect to Bitcoin.
Oh, wow. No, it's been an absolute joy. It's been an absolute joy. Guys, definitely, please, I encourage you to go back, listen to this, share it with anyone and everyone, because like we said, all the issues and topics addressed here today, it's more than just for the guys, it's more than just for the women, it's more than just for the adults, it's more than just for the kids, it's for everyone that's able to listen or watch. And with that, thank you so much, Glenn. And
thank you, man. It's been real, man.
Guys, definitely keep an eye out. He's got a new skill he's going to be acquiring. I finally found the pictures for it, so I'm not going to say what it is. But guys, if you want to find,
can say it. You can say it if you want to. It's cool if you want to.
Because I forgot the name. I forgot the name.
Oh, it's a rope dart.
A rope dart. Are you getting the actual metal end, or are you getting a plastic?
I have it. I already bought it. Yep, I got it.
Oh, okay. It's quite serious.
Oh, it's very serious. All this stuff is very serious. But don't worry, I'm moving very slowly. I want to be. I would suggest anybody going to pick up any type of martial art, just treat it with respect, and stay out of the hospital.
Absolutely, guys. Do you know what? I just recommend anyone that's listening to the podcast to go check out your Instagram page and check out the content you put out and get on the Clubhouse room. Again, the Clubhouse room is small room, great value. That's small room, SMALL room, great value. And
and the podcast. Forget about the podcast. The podcast is going to be 95killers.com. And the Instagram is 95killers also on Instagram. And then, or you could do Glen Graham 4.0. I'm on all of those. Reach out to me anywhere there. And guys, do whatever you want in life. Like, don't let anybody define what you are here to do. So have a great one. And thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, taking this time and you just opening your platform and just letting people express themselves. Like, this is great. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.